Hello everyone, and welcome to Creative Deck Tech. Today I'll be presenting the Mothman Infect budget. Alright, so as you can see, the commander would be the Mothman. Here he is, the Wise Mothman. He's a flyer for 4 mana, Sultai. Whenever the Wise Mothman enters the battlefield or attacks, each player gets a rad counter. Whenever one or more non-land cards are milled, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. So what does this mean? We're not focusing too much on the milling, but we are trying to put out a lot of small infect or toxic creatures in the hopes of getting them a little bigger every turn, and then swinging at our opponents for infect damage and killing them that way. So let's start going. We have Courage in Crisis. This is putting a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and then proliferating. So it's a little bit of a, it's doing 2 jobs at once, actually. It's just making our creatures bigger, and also proliferating those poison counters. Then a Blight Belly Rat, Toxic 1, small little guy, but it does also proliferate, which is very nice when it dies. The mana base is pretty budgety too, a lot of swamps. These you could easily upgrade to have some more duels. Canker Bloom, also some enchantment or artifact hate, or a proliferate in a pinch. Overflowing Basin, great card, great value, nice filtering. Aspirant's Ascent, we have a lot of little toxic guys, and then we can give him Toxic 1 extra, so you could hit in for 2 poison counters instead of 1, and it could also be a little combat trick and some invasion. Then this Mirror, it gives some mana. We don't have a lot of rocks, we're trying to go aggro, but it also serves as a toxic counter. Now, Sam's Desperate Rescue, it returns a creature to our hand because we have a lot of small creatures. The goal here is to maybe get something back that died earlier, and then the ring tempts us. So, what's the good thing about the ring? Well, you basically get Skulk, and that allows us to hit in when opponents start building their board. Run away from the birthday. Same here. You draw a little card, and you get the Skulk effect from the ring. And the Soul Ring. Smell Fear. So we don't really have a lot of removal in this deck, but this is removal that proliferates, so it makes our creatures bigger, and then one of our creatures fights another creature. Ringside, making something legendary with the ring, and then we can tutor for anything, maybe a finisher or whatever is necessary in the moment. Then this is a flyer, a 1/1 infect. It's just nice, a little guy to get the things going. And Glorious Gale. So this is a counter spell. Aimed at creatures. Now we don't want too many creatures on the board for our opponents, so we can keep on hitting them. And again, the ring can tempt us if the creature isn't a legendary card, like their commander. Now, Embiggen, this is a pretty funny card. Non-brushwag creatures, we don't have any brushwags in our deck. And then for each super type, card type, and subtype it has. So normally this will be a +3/+3, but it could get a little bigger, like a +4/+4, which is very nice to get that infect out of the blue. This one is also a very nice land. We can proliferate the counters on it, so we can do the +1/+1 on multiple creatures when they enter. Infectious Bite, some more removal, and the opponents get a poison counter, so it's a 2-for-1. It does everything we would like in our deck. Pro-like to Pheresis. Each opponent gets a poison counter, and we draw a card to get the ball rolling. Now, Mutational Advantage. Okay, a little bit more expensive as it goes for 3 mana, But it's great to give our permanents. Most of our permanents will have counters on them. Hexproof and indestructible. They also are, don't receive damage, so great. And yeah, proliferate. That's all we want. This little thing is easy to put on to other creatures of ours. Give that a little bit more infect, and then it also equips for one, and also makes them a little more thick. Tainted Observer, a flyer with Toxic 1, and it can let us proliferate if we have leftover mana. It corrects Infect itself, and then when it enters, each player gets an Infect counter. Poison counter. Counter target spell. Oh, well, yeah, it's nice. Normally opponents will have 3 or more poison counters, so you could just counter something. Another flyer with a Toxic 1. Blighted Agent, really good card. It has Infect and it's unblockable, so great. Evolution Sage, every time we play a land, or we have a land enter, we proliferate, so great for our board. Slip through space, making a creature unblockable, so we can get in for the Infect, and we draw a card, so it's a nice little cantrip. Now, the Colibri, the Hummingbird. The good thing about this, it hits, it flies, we can attach like any equipment to it to give it Toxic, and then we can proliferate all of our counters too. Grafted Exoskeleton, giving something Infect like the Hummingbird is great. Also gets a little bigger. And then the sacrifice part is not very important, honestly, because they will often try to remove this thing, and well, yeah, we have a lot of little creatures, so we don't care too much about that. Here, this is a 4 mana. It can ramp us 2 cards, or it can proliferate twice, which is really good. You have that option. Now, Tainted Strike, wow. This ability is amazing, especially with the commander, with the Mothman. It goes ham. So, say Mothman is at 6 counters. You play this, you can insta-gip someone, which is very unexpected. Flux Channeler, amazing card. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. This card has not won me multiple games. It's just very good, very nice. Infectious Inquiry, 2 life. Okay, we don't care about. We like to draw, and each opponent gets a poison counter, which is great. Blight Mamba, it regenerates. It has Infect. It's cheap. It's great. A Natural Restoration, proliferation, and getting back one of our creatures, or yeah, one of our creatures is great. Now, Invigorate, normally the 3 life is not so great. It only gives +3/+3, but for us with an Infect creature, that +4/+4 is great. You know, it can really end the game out of the blue. Toxic 1, proliferate. It's a nice flyer, and every time you proliferate, this goes back to your hand, so you can replay it, and it's nice, a little bit of recursion. This also just counters something if the opponent has a poison counter, which they often will. Okay, thank for some ramp. Serum Snare, it's a little bit of removal, and if the thing you're bouncing is 3 or less, you get proliferate, so it has that upside too. Here's some small removal for 1/1s, you never know, but the big thing is, of course, 4 mana, proliferate. Small removal, but the proliferate at instant speed is great. Then Azuri, Stalker of Spheres, for 4 mana. It's just a nice little creature, but for 7 mana, it's amazing. It proliferates twice, draws 2 cards. It's a very nice end game or mid-game option. Now, Dreamtide Whale, this is a 7/5 for 3, 2 vanishing counters, but whenever a player casts their 2nd spell each turn, proliferate, that's just amazing, you know. It could be our own spell, so you play this, maybe have 4 mana, pay 3 for this, pay 1 for another card, and then you already get the proliferating going. Then Planner Celebration. Basically, if we choose to proliferate 4 times, that could be a real game winner. Necropede, Infect, and the -1/- counter could come in handy from time to time, but it's mostly the Infect. Same here, Infect with some lifelink. Infect for 1 green mana, that's great. Some filter lands. Pick your poison. This is a really good card. It's cheap. It can remove something that's pesky, and you get bonuses for each opponent. So for 1 mana, even though it's a sorcery, it is pretty good. And sacrificing creature flying can let our commander hit hard. This is again +1/+1. Nice with Infect. Hexproof is great for a commander, and the Skulk ability is also great with the ring temptingness. Hexproof to protect our creatures. A little bit of removal and Bitter Triumph. Destroying an artifact is nice with an Infect creature. Proliferate or lands if we need it. Proliferate, draw a card. Now, this card is really, really nice. What it does is actually just brings something back to the hand, but it also mills everyone for 2. So that's a nice little synergy with our commander, and if someone tutors for a card, you can have a gotcha moment, you know? Become immense, +6/+6. Again, with the Infect, it's a nice little surprise. For us, not for our opponents. Vraska's Fall, a nice little sack, and a poison counter for everyone. Negate. Snakeskin Veil, again, +1/+1 counter. That's great for proliferating, and Hexproof for protection. This is again for the Skulk, and to get pesky blockers out of the way. Proliferate, draw a card. This also proliferates, and let us pick a card that we like from the top. Some removal. Opponents won't be having those poison counters, so it's nice in late game 2. Draw 2 cards, proliferate, and then here you put X1 counters on a creature. Then you can also counter a dangerous spell that could threaten your board. So yeah, that's the deck. I would say it's a different approach to Infect than Atraxa, something that you see more often, or it's also a different approach to the Mothman itself. Most people tend to go for a milling strategy. Here we have a little bit of that. Mostly the Mothman itself is doing the milling, but it's really aimed at making our creatures bigger and then finishing the game with some Infect. Hope you enjoyed the video and the deck tech, and it's really fun to play. Do discuss with your table and the play group whether they're okay with Infect. Not everyone likes it that much, but this deck is just very aggro, and I don't feel like it's super oppressive or anything. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and have fun with the deck tech.